Well, it's been said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I have said myself multiple times that pictures are very easily understood and are a universal language. It doesn't matter what language we speak, we all understand pictures. That doesn't mean that we can just get by on pictures, though. Sometimes we do need to include some text, some typed out or written up information. So, this week that's our subject. You want to probably go over to your course pack and take a look at Unit 13. That'll help us as we're having our lecture. Over in Canvas, we have the materials for Unit 13 that have been prepared. And let's get right into our discussion on text and text styles and text tools. Over in AutoCAD, you're going to want to open up that first file in the exercises. Exercise 5A text. You'll also open up 5B hatch and 5C architectural hatch. We'll be working with all three of those files as exercises during the lecture. So let's take a look at drawing exercise 5A. It says text, and here's where we begin. Drawings are considered incomplete unless there is some written information on them, while the lines and the center marks and the center lines and the dimensions tell you a lot about the drawing. They don't tell you everything. So, for example, how are we to know what material this is made out of? You see, the drawing doesn't tell us that by looking at the pictures. What manufacturing process will be used to create this? Is it cast? Is it milled? Is it forged? See, we don't know that without having some text to give us direction. Is this painted? Is it polished? Is it rough cast? See, the finish is also undetermined unless we have some text to tell us that. So here is a typical drawing for a mechanical device or a mechanical part that shows you the pictures along with the text. So text is just one of the parts to a drawing. There are 4 parts to every drawing, and the shapes are the first part. And we've done a bunch of drawing of shapes. But the notes, the annotations, these are the second part, and they are essential. If we don't have the notes, the drawing's incomplete. So we'll use text tools to add notes to our technical drawings. Here is an example of the amount of text that sometimes goes on drawings. We see a site plan down here, so here's the building, and here's the parking lot, and the property. Well, look at all the text that has been included. Now, this is not optional. This is not because the person loves typing out paragraphs of information. This was essential and needed for this set of construction documents. Right? Even organizing the site data, well, this is all neatly arranged text. Notes are a part of the plan, so here are some typical site plan notes. And again, we can be thankful, I guess, that we're not having to letter these out by hand with perfect printing. We're using CAD, and CAD is like a word processor when it's time to add text. Some more general notes, and we can see that there is a lot of typing. Some pages have nothing but text on them in a set of working drawings. Okay, so in a typical set of drawings of 50 or 100 or 200 sheets, there'll be maybe just as much text as there is line work and drawings. So now, how do we make text? Well, let's take a look. Over in AutoCAD, we have the annotation panel, and annotation just means notes. This panel lets us add different kinds of notes: text, dimensions, leaders, and tables. And the tools up here are the ones we'll click on when we need those things. So text is rather simple, and there are actually 2 tools here. If you click on the black arrow, you see that there is a multi-line text tool and a single line text tool. We've been using the multi-line text tool just to put your name on drawings because really it is the easier of the 2 tools to use. It's a click, and then with our caps lock on, we start typing our name, right? Nice and easy. I want you to learn how to use both tools though, because sometimes we want to use single line text and other times we will use multi-line text. So let's start off today with single line text. Single line text is also sometimes referred to as D-text, and here's how it works. We click on the single line text tool. AutoCAD's first question is, where do you want the start point? So right there at 0, 0. Okay, and then its second question is, what height do you want? Now right now inside the brackets you see it says 0.2 inches. We can just leave that, so hit enter. And then it's asking another question. It's asking, what angle do you want? And this refers to AutoCAD's angle system, right, for polar angles. So you know that 0 goes to the right, 90 goes up and down, 180, 270, all the way back to 0. We'll just accept the 0 so that the text goes from left to right. And then after all that information, after one click and 2 inputs, now it's ready for you to type. So why don't you type something? Single line text. Okay, and when we're done, we hit enter. And you'll see that AutoCAD wants to add some more text. Well, we're done. We don't want to add more text, so just hit enter a second time, one more time, and now we are out of the command and ready to move on. So, did you notice how much you had to give it, how much information it needed before you started typing anything? And this is important because if you start typing at the wrong time, it's going to yell at you. It's going to slap you in the face. It's going to be very grumpy and not cooperate. Right? So again, it is multiple steps before you start typing. It is, where do you want the text? How high is the text? How tall is the text? What angle is the text? And then we can type our text. So on your keyboard, if you type in D-text, that starts the single line text command. Again, when you're done, you hit enter. That'll give you a second line. And if you're done, hit enter one more time. That will get you out of the command completely. If you click the D-text, you'll see there's a little blue grip in the corner. Lets you reposition it. Okay, and the whole piece of text moves as one object, even though it's multiple letters. Now, when we made the D-text, there was a few options in there. It's important to take a look at the options. So we'll make another piece of single line text. This time we'll start here. And it says, what height? Let's keep the height. Now this time, when it says, what angle do you want? Let's do this. Let's type in 45. Okay, so now take a look at my cursor. Do you see how the cursor is rotated at 45 degrees? Since we've told it location, height, and angle, it's ready to start typing. So, how about text on an angle? Not text on an angel, but text on an angle. Okay, and then when we're done, we hit enter. It's asking us if we'd like to add some more text, but we don't, so we'll hit enter a second time. And now here's a second piece of text. Now that's kind of a wacky thing, huh? Text on an angle. Fact is though, on some kinds of drawings, you'll have some text that's horizontal and other text that is angled. I think of surveying drawings where they're talking about elevations. Existing elevations are often at an angle, and proposed elevations are usually 0 degrees like this. So instead of having to type everything and then rotate them one at a time, it's just much easier to type them rotated. This is really the best part about D-text, is when you have a list, what it does is it keeps everything lined up and evenly spaced while you're making that list. So why don't you click on D-text again, single line text, give it a start point. Keep the height default at 0.2. Keep the angle. Oh, look at the angle, right? Right now it says 45 because it remembers what you just did. So let's set it back to 0. Okay, and then let's make ourselves a shopping list. Okay, we got the Home Depot shopping list on the left. Maybe that doesn't appeal to you. Rafters and studs and joists and anchor bolts. So let's just do this. We'll type bread and then enter, and then milk and then enter, and then eggs and then enter, right? And then cheese and then enter. I'm going to make some pizza today. Right, and then when we're all done with all of our items, we'll hit enter a last time, and that will get us out of the command. Notice that these are individual pieces of text. If I decide that I am going to go vegan today for my pizza, I will take out the eggs, I will take out the cheese and hit delete. Right, and now we're going to have some terrible bread with tomatoes and oregano on it. Okay, the point is though, you can delete an individual piece of text. And if it's multiple words, then they both go. Mozzarella cheese, right? This isn't two words, mozzarella and cheese. This is a single piece of text that has the two words in it. So it's not two pieces of text. So what I want you to see is how much nicer it looks when everything is lined up and evenly spaced versus when everything is all snaggle-toothed like this, right? So I don't know if you know any engineers. I don't know if you work with people who do engineering. Engineers tend to be kind of, the word I'm looking for maybe is picky. Yeah, picky would be good. If things aren't lined up, if things aren't precise, no one's going to be happy, right? Makes the project look much nicer when it looks like you took the effort to make it look neat. And the text tools will help your text look neat, so your notes look like this instead of looking like this, which is a disgrace. Okay? So, that is the basics of placing text in your drawing. Now, there's this idea about texts called justification that I want to talk to you about. Justification. So, we know when we type in Microsoft Word that when you start typing, automatically the text goes to the left. And why is that? Well, it's because we read from left to right, and we want it to be on the left-hand side of the paper. So no biggie, text goes to the left, or comes from the left and moves to the right. This is called left justified text. Means it's moved all the way over as far as it can go to the margin. Okay, so we see here the margin of the paper, and we see our text goes all the way to the left. What would you do though if you wanted to have the title of something in the middle of the paper? Would you hit enter a bunch of times to get it to move to the middle? You know, I know people that do this, and this is really not the best way to accomplish this. Hitting enter a bunch of times is kind of like what you would do if you didn't know how to use a computer very well. So there is a button up here that lets you change the alignment or the justification of your text. So left justify, left align is the default, the one it usually is at. If I go to my next line here and I hit the next button though, that will give me something called center or middle defined. Okay, so this is a justified to the middle of the page. And what's nice about justification, instead of hitting enter a bunch of times, is no matter how many letters there are, it will always stay in the middle. Right? That's always perfectly centered. Okay, so it's much better to use the justification to position your text than it is to spacebar. How about this? If you wanted all the way to the right, would you go in there with your spacebar and keep moving it till it went down and then back up a little? See, if you do that, again, I got bad news for you. That's kind of a rookie way to do it, okay? But look, there's a button up here to control the justification or the alignment of the text so that it does move, bam, automatically all the way to the right. And guess what? This is called right justified. And then no matter how many letters there are, they'll always be up to the right-hand side. Okay, so this is the idea of justification. Maybe you knew that about Microsoft Word, that it had multiple justifications. So it's got three typical ones in Word. AutoCAD has a bunch. AutoCAD is 14. And you might be saying, wow, that sounds kind of overkill. Well, you know, again, people that do this kind of work, they are a little bit over the top sometimes, but we have to be able to place the text exactly where we want it. So let's talk about how do we justify our text. We'll go to single line text, and it'll say, where do you want to start the text, or do you want to justify the text? So click on justify. And then over here, if our object snaps are turned on, I should be able to snap to this location. after I tell it which justification I like to use. See, I have to tell it which justify to use before I locate it. So I'm going to use center justify, just like my example here. I'll click on center justify, and it says, okay, where is the center going to be? Now you can object snap, right? Now you can say, bam, that's the center. Then it'll ask you some of those similar questions. It'll say, what's the height? Height is 0.2. What's the angle? Angle is 0. Okay, and now look at my cursor as I start typing. Right, my text is in the exact center, left to right, at the bottom edge of that box. I'll hit enter again, and we see that my text now has two grips. It's got a grip out here, but it's also got a grip here where the justification point was. Okay, so that is center justify. I'll go back to single line text. I'll say I want to justify my single line text. This time I want to go with middle justify. I'll say, okay, where's your middle going to be? My middle is going to be right here. What's the height? Enter to accept the height. What's the angle? Enter to accept the angle. Start typing. Okay, and then when you're done, hit enter again. Now, what's the difference between center and middle? Well, center will put you in the middle, left to right, whereas middle puts you in the middle, or the center, left to right, and up and down. Okay, if you give it a click, you're going to see a grip out here on the corner. You'll also see the justification point right there. And of course, you can move it around if you needed to, or grab it from the mid point justification and move it to another point on the drawing. Our last simple justification is right justify. So I'll say, give me some single line text and justify it. And then I'd like right justify. I would like the right justify to start here. Bam. 0.2 for the height's good. 0 for the angle's good. And we can start typing. Okay. And then 2 enters gets me to the next line and gets me another command. What do we have? Well, we have some text that has a justification point right there. That is the bottom right corner of where the text could possibly be. All right, so these are some basic justifications. Now, if you need to change or modify text, we should know how to do that. We double click on it. We double click on it, and that opens up this little field, and you can put your cursor in there, and you can change what you want to. Now, you might have also noticed that there's a little spell checker working in AutoCAD. Right now, do you see the red underline under this word? So it's telling you, hey, that's not a word. Okay, so if there's a spelling mistake, single line text will point it out, but only when you are editing the text. Okay, otherwise, if you spell it wrong, it doesn't have the red line when we're not working with that piece of text. Okay, so those are several more justifications. So we had left, we have right, we have center, and middle. What else do we have? Well, check it out. We have top left, top center, top right, middle left, middle center, middle right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. That's a lot of justifications, isn't it? But again, you want to be able to put the text where you want it. You see, top left has a grip in the top left corner. So you can stick it exactly, precisely where you want it. Top center has a grip at the center of the text string and at the very top edge. Top right has it in the top right. Middle right on the right edge, but in the middle, top to bottom. Middle left is the opposite, in the left edge, but in the middle, top to bottom. Middle center is kind of like just regular middle. Bottom left, grip is down here. Bottom center, grip is down here. Bottom right, grip is down here. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could go through here and you could add some single line text. How about single line text, justify, top left, And first point will be up here. That'll be our top left corner. Accept the height, accept the angle, and top R. No, top L. Top left. Enter, enter. Okay, and you can put your text in where you want. Now, you don't really have to go through all of these boxes if you understand this concept that justification lets you place the text exactly where you want and gives you a grip to move it later on. One thing that might be helpful, though, to take a look at is to take a look at the middle center justification, because this is a kicker and you want to be able to do this. So let's try it together. Single line text, justify, middle center. It says, where's the middle point of the text? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure my object snap track is on. I'm going to acquire that point at the middle of the top edge. I'm going to acquire that point at the middle of the side edge. I'm going to track over, bam, 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 and there we go. Click. Okay, and then I'll accept the 0.2 height and the 0 angle and MC middle center. Right? And when we're done, we should have a grip that lines up with the middle of this edge here and the middle of this edge here. It'll be an important skill to have for our actual assignment, so try that and make sure you can get it exactly where you want it. Right? And if that's tricky using the object snap tracking, well, you can always do it the old-fashioned way. You could draw an X in the box. You can make your text over here, and as long as it's got that middle center grip, you could grab it and move it and snap it exactly where you want it. Okay, so there's 9 more text justifications, right? We have 9 here. We had 4, that's 13. Then we got 2 more, we got 15. One is called fit and one is called align. So fit is kind of fun. I'm going to go to single line text and I'm going to say I want to justify it fit. I'm going to go from this point here to this point here, and I'm going to keep the 0.2 for height. And notice it didn't ask me the angle, right? It didn't ask me angle that time. It wants me to type. So the cursor is up. I'm going to type my name. And I'll hit enter, enter. Now check it out. My name fits perfectly in that space between the 2 clicks. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click single line text again. And you know, it remembers, see up here, it remembers the height, remembers justify. Remembers that we were doing fit. Right, so it wants the first endpoint. I'll hit with my first endpoint. It wants a second endpoint. It wants the height, enter, and now it wants me to type. I'm going to type the same word, and I want you to see how my name looks different in the 2 boxes. Okay, so the box over here, it looks more spaced out, right? And the box here, it looks more squished together. That's because fit text is fitting in between the 2 clicks. Let's do it one more time. Justify fit text from here to here. 0.2 height. And then what's my text? My name. So these aren't 3 different fonts. It's the same font each time. But what we're getting is a little bit of space, less space, and stretched out amount of space. Right? If you want to click on justify fit text, you can see there's the 2 grips. And in fact, you could go in and change it. You can squish it, you can compress it, you could even put it on an angle if you wanted to, which is why AutoCAD didn't ask you what angle you wanted, because your 2 clicks define the angle. Okay, and if the text is enormously wide, well then your lettering will be enormously wide. They're all the same height, but they're either stretched or compressed. That's fit text. The last justify out of the 15 is called align. Don't like it, don't suggest you use it, but I'll show you how it works. Text, justify, align. It says what are our endpoints? Here's the first endpoint. Here's the second endpoint. Okay, it says start typing. So if I type BC and hit enter, do you see how BC follows that line perfectly on that angle. So that looks like a good idea, right? You're able to follow lines at an angle. Now, if you went in and you added more letters, look what happened to the text. Do you see how it is smaller now? See, it shrunk, right? And this is primarily the reason I don't like this text tool, because on a drawing, when you have crazy 500 different sizes of text, it looks very amateurish. It looks like a 4-year-old made it. Okay, text should be the same height and consistent. And unfortunately with this tool, the fewer the letters you're working with, well, the larger the text, the more letters you're working with, the smaller the text, and it just gives you way too much variety in text type for it to look good. Okay, so work with it though. Maybe you do your name from here to here. Maybe you do your full name. Maybe you just do your first name. Maybe you do your nickname. And you see how the text grows and shrinks even though it's following the line, and that seems like it's got a benefit, but I wouldn't suggest it. Okay, so this is our discussion on single line text and what justification is and why we justify text. Again, it is because people that work with technical drawings like things rather precise. Microsoft Word has 3 justifications, AutoCAD has 15 of them, and depending on what we're doing, we might have to work with some of them or all of them.